Okay, cool. Welcome everyone to this year's first Poem Present reading. It's great to see you. My name's Margaret Ross, and I teach in the creative writing program here. And it's my immense pleasure to introduce Asiya Wadud, who will be reading tonight. I hope you'll also join us tomorrow at noon for Asiya's Poem Present talk, which she'll be giving in this same room. And before I begin, I just want to thank Creative Writing's amazing events coordinator, Starsha Gill, without whom none of this would happen. And thank you so much to Asiya for making the trip and for sharing your work with us. Quote, "Can you read a map? Who taught you that the good north was that? Can you spell fatal to map an abiding passage? The Fata Morgana is always superior. It senses the horizon and it laps the waters. Who taught you to read the map like that? Can you see the map? You mean the manifested frontier?" So begins Asiya Wadud's poem, The Structure of Birds, through which these questions recur and refract, enacting a prismatic interrogation of the willful erasures and distortions upheld by maps of nations and oceans, of north and south, of the good, of ongoing violence obfuscated by English, of migration, of mirage, of border and horizon. Such vital inquiry pervades Wadud's poetry, not only in the form of questions, but through her extraordinary sense of description. Though at the same time, description seems to me an inadequate word for what Wadud's poems do. Description, as one encounters it in Wadud's poems, is kinetic, shimmering with the energetic wish to perceive the world more clearly, more immediately. It refuses simplistic distinctions between the singular and the multiple, the earthly and the astral, the dead and the living. The Fibonacci catacombs of my one neighbor's sunflower, one poem begins. Or, the nail beds and undernails carrion a budding breath, stillbird and bluebird contorting in the aftermath. Wadud's descriptions frequently speak with the incantatory rhythms of prayer. And like prayer, they understand that an arrangement of words is not a self-contained entity, but a radiant vector capable of illuminating the spirit and inspiring transformation. The poems that accrue are simultaneously fractal and radial. Their attention to the increment, to the small detail, entails perception of that detail's involvement in a larger, ever-expanding pattern. Her poems compel us to understand our lives in constellation with the lives of birds, of pothos, of tides, of people across distances, temporal and spatial. Quote, "The air in here stands still. The air stands still while I read the news. There is but a subtle lick to note the air in here. Once I took the good, able air for granted. Another patera off the coast of Lampedusa. The patera's empty oil drum succumbs to the water. Men grip their end from the open air. The air in here rustles a little and the wind moves me. The wind takes me. The air in here? That's a security. The air in here carries a blue passport, carries stature and status, a strong back and access, carries kind and a need. And the air holds firm when I forget who it is I wanted to become. I walk to the window and take in the outside." Attention as a form of ethics is the title of one of Wadud's poems in her most recent collection, No Knowledge is Complete Until It Passes Through My Body, from Nightboat Books, which instructs us, let's dissect what it means to mourn. That invitation resonates back to through her debut collection, Crosslight for Youngbird, also published by Nightboat, and her book-length choral poem, Syncope, from Ugly Duckling Press, both of which engage the deep histories and continuous present of organized violence against people attempting to migrate to Europe, the inextricable relations between these crises and the still unfolding crisis of the Middle Passage. In her essay, on the infinite fault lines of contemporary life, Wadud asks, what is the opposite of a border? Is ocular the opposite of border? Ocular means willing to see something, to give it your attention, which is not entirely true. It just means of or related to the eye, but if we are talking about the eye, I want to know what it sees. If you will yourself to see something, then it's probably not long until you see the fault lines. If you see the fault lines, you acknowledge there is a fault field. If you avow the presence of the fault field, then you are open to the brokenness within you and everyone, and your own faultiness of logic, our misguided rectitude. To practice and model such a visionary openness is one of the many profound gifts of Wadud's work, and can be felt not only in the exquisite precision of her attention word by word, but in the conversation her poems conduct with other artists and thinkers, from Dion Brand to Clarice Lispector, from Christina Sharp to Okwiyuk Pakwasili, with whom she co-authored Day Pulls Down the Sky, a filament in gold leaf, published by Belladonna and Dance Space Project. Wadud has been an artist in residence at Dance Space, Center for Book Arts, and the Lower Manhattan Cultural Council, and elsewhere. She lives in Brooklyn and teaches poetry at St. Anne's School, Columbia University, and Pacific Northwest College of Art. A moment from her lyric essay, Straight Lines, Knots, Quarter Turns, Repeat, seems one right place to end and begin. What a prismatic longing, what a covenant, to speak to the bloom. What bell, little tangle, what selvage that made us. There is a room, there is an open door, call it invitational. Remove the door from the hinges and call it a room that we all fill. Please join me in welcoming Asiya Wadud.
Wow, thank you so very much, Margaret. That was so, I guess it's always impossible, at least I always feel that it's impossible to ever see your own work up close or to see it from any number of vantages at the same time. So it's such a gift to be able to do that. So thank you for doing that. And thank you for having me. It's so nice to see all of you and to be in Chicago. I was just telling Margaret that I haven't left New York, not even one single time since August, like not even like on the train to go somewhere. And so it feels really nice to be in a new place and to have a chance to read some pieces from this new book. It's actually really warm, which is surprising, but it's true. So I don't even think I need this. So I'd like to read tonight some pieces from this new book, No Knowledge is Complete Until It Passes Through My Body. And then I have some other work that I guess exists too. And so maybe I'll read some of those pieces as well. It's been so long since I read in person. I'm trying to like remember what that's like to just stand in front of a room and be with people in a room and not on Zoom. So it's nice to be here with you. Can everyone hear me okay? Yeah? Okay, good. The order was in the hour of worship. The order was in the hour of worship. Stained glass windows act as mosaic, all radiant acts of attrition, all foregrounded prayers supplanted, all prayers a back channel, every pew held our bodies. We turned our bodies to the covenant, buttressed by the Mason-Dixon and all its flat border counties. God vested his attention along its northern border, vested his attention where he wanted, rested his attention along the crest. The only act of God was in the hour of our worship, the cross-board directives, directives that could show us, shower us as a trinity, shrouds of our own making. All exemplars, prayers supplanted, all prayers supplementary work. The sun shone its piercing distance. It shone well because it wanted. The sun shone through the church pew. The sun shunted us along the back channel brood. The little tight crest began to peel at the seams. It began to gestate its seams as it peeled back. Anything that has crossed my paths, I would mother. Any semblance of family elocution, I mother. All felt logic familiar, huddled for warmth in the space between us. That's what distance does to us. This gilded foremost endeavor, clenched in chlorophyll, wrapping tendrils toward the sun, at every breath my countenance. My long path to wholeness, no country can grant me that. My lonesome 3/5, the precise mathematics of partition all across my selvage. Yesterday I sat with the ocean, seeking out its white noise, held a shell up to my ear, settled into its subterfuge. I took a sound recording of the waves, sound wave speculation. What's with the undercurrent, all these ocean grifters, what the flotsam water held in staunch relief. Yesterday I rose from my bed Saturday morning, rode the ferry outbound, all New Amsterdam's soundless current, a polyphonic noise system. No language was stayed. I broke with tradition. Hello? I called into a black vacuum. What I got was the virtuous salt sonic. What I got was a reply. Order comes to the house of worship. I slid my fingers through the hot sand. The sun burned my right leg, I let it. The planes, they flew overhead, I let them. The seagulls drifted outbound, let them. All birds a light when bruised, if their wings will carry them. Hello? I called into a vacuous island. From the bird's eye we see the other islands. From the bird's eye any light? From the bird's eye pinprick? From the bird's eye the sun was burning my right leg, I let it. I counted 17 planes. I would triple that to count the gulls. I listened to the May ocean. I was still marooned in May. I was taking flight in May. I did my day as I wanted. I was still childless. I took my time to get to the ocean. I rode the ferry lengthwise. I loved how its motor trilled, strumming us through its cerulean back channels. All prayers supplanted. Every pew held our bodies. When we got to the waters, all the oak pews faced the Atlantic, to carry us outbound silk coffers, to sit with the words held in the pews. The sun burned a hole right through me, I let it. It was a better means to supplant the missives. The pews got filled with our bodies, our linen garments cuffed by hem by selvage, salt-lined and miasma, little grains of sand embedded, how the water ebbs and the tides bind. A few came with their long rods named birches, all the branches peeled back. The order was in the hour of the workhorse. The others were in the house of worship. Any small act delivers the Lord's vested ships. Next we managed the heap, the lumber. We dressed our hands in the lumber glove. We used the Granberg sawmill and its guiding system. We felled the trees and trusted they become lumber, wasted not a single splinter, all lumber cast from selvage. Diligently the Bostricidae emerged from their exit wounds, circular fissures in the wood's surface. We sowed inside them an ardent language, undo the pestilence, smoke out the dense lattice, the dead rising right to the surface, or better yet, let them live. They built the ship's deck around us. We remained in the pews. We closed our eyes as a protective message. We cupped our hands to our ears and amplify any noise, direct conduit to any ocean. Under this pestilence, the ship's berth is coming together. During the long construction, we never rose from the pews. We knew the order was in the hour of worship. One by one, the timber became what it could become. When we opened our eyes, we were on the water. The Atlantic is a matriline. Wake, borehole, wave crest lumber, cadence, incandescence, all prayers a back channel. Mason-Dixon bifurcated, split along Garrett County. We touched the boat to bless it. We touched all its minor parts, touched anything unruly. Beyond 3/5 is the rest of Plessy. The order was in the hour of the workhorse, doused our hands in mineral oil, we blessed it. This our finished vessel, so it would shunt us far from here. No map governed our journey, the nautical chart, a rote index of possible nexts, barren, void, electric language. No map yet governs us, thus no map governs our journey. The shrouds we tucked them in the hull. For whatever was coming, we were to live through it. For whatever was coming, we were to live with it. For whatever was coming, we were to live in it. We existed at the margins of the coda. We exited the ocean, all ovum rendered worthless, all ovum meritocratic, nothing else but progeny. No map yet governs us, thus no map governs our journey. I'm etching anything in whatever substance remains viscous. The workhorse bruised to a full canter, all working hours held in accord. Long hours, then long life, countenance converge at wholeness. The numerator is filmy ocean, dividend the whole planet, all colonial demarcation, held in full credence, as if the earth existed just to suffer this pillage. The order was vested in the red moon. The order was in the hour of worship. How threadbare this trinity, selvish, brackish viscosity, Mason-Dixon covenant. The sun shines its full distance. It casts its gaze how it wants it. And what it wants is the order of the workhorse. So what it gets is the order of the workhorse. I wanted to read a poem since you mentioned Dionne Brand. I mean, she's always on my mind. I'm always thinking about her. And I was in Mexico City a couple years ago, and I had just finished reading The Blue Clerk, and by Dionne Brand, in case you're not familiar with it. I just finished reading it, and I was carrying it everywhere I went because I knew that I just wanted to keep it close. It felt like it needed to be close, and so I was carrying it everywhere, and I brought a couple books with me to Mexico City, and that was one of the books I brought, and I was rereading it while I was there, and I started having this feeling that Dionne Brand was like just around every corner, and I really convinced myself. I'm like, I know the next corner I turn around, she's going to be there. She really will be there. And so I finally emailed her. I was like, hi, Dionne, if I may, are you in Mexico City by chance? And she had just left. She had been there, and I told her, I was like, I'm reading The Blue Clerk again, and I really feel your presence. It's very strong. So then she sent me a list of all the things that she had done. So then I just did all those things that Dionne Brand did. So I wrote this poem for her while I was down there. Chapter 2, verses 1 to 30 for Dionne Brand. All his 5 fingers were the mirror weight of the blue bird which I cupped, it with its broken leg, us at the end. The nail beds and undernails yellowed and matte. What mattered is how he held the fruit. He placed for me in a bag the fruit of the market, which mattered because now the blue bag held the weight, the levied load. The bluebird limped, its blue wings an undercurrent, fluttering, then stillness, blue in its movement, blue quiet articulation. I learned that if you are gentle with a bluebird, a sparrow, a dove, they will gently double back. I removed my sweatshirt, a guardian enveloping her nest. I put the bird where it belonged. I cupped the bird in my shirt and we drove on. I slowed my breathing. The bird nested against my chest. When I asked after the smallest fruit at the market, the man told me peel back the flesh. The nail beds and undernails, carrion, a budding breath, stillbird and bluebird contorting in the aftermath. The bird remained calm, and the eye and I called the doctor. This is how we tended to each other. Subsequently, I requested 3 of each fruit, 3 guava, 3 apples, 3 mandarins, a third of a bucket of the new fruit, a third of the peppers available. The bird tried 3 times to escape. Each time I was humbled by its need for flight, despite its broken wing. Each time my eye got me. I swiftly gripped back and put the bird where it belonged, festooned in my grip, on the way to the animal doctor. I left the market with the 3 fruit tranches and the bluebird in the care of the able doctor. Sometimes I reference a picture of the bird. I have not yet pulled up the image of the blue bag with its thirds. It remains evident, immediate in my proximity. This week is a way to say that for a third of my life I have thought about flight. This week is to say that flight is divisible by 3, action, procession, and recompense. This week is to say the visual field is a variegated membrane with every kind of bird. I left the market with the tranches. As I left, the gentlest man, he who chose the fruit for me sweetly, or I can only know this kind of distributive love as intending. As I left, the gentlest man, he who chose the fruit for me assuredly, took my one hand in his 2 hands. My hand rested, aware that I could breathe, my gaze, grace. There have been so many times where I have sheltered birds, and in turn where I have been sheltered by anything. Flight is the process of ascension, of future despite absence. Flight is the certain cool vacuum of levity, this load. We ride the air capriciously. Flight attenuates to birthright. Imagine all the loads we are meant to carry, the murmurations when they finally disperse. Imagine dispersal as a series of decisions, now dispersal as a series of angles. Diaspora as the low, pregnant boomerang. There have been beloved times where I have sheltered birds, and when, in turn, I have been sheltered by whatever. All 5 fingers were the mirror weight of the bluebird which I cupped, it with its broken leg. He placed for me in a bag the fruit of the market, which mattered because now the blue bag tarries and waits. The load lightens. For breakfast, I feasted from the blue bag, tranching the fruit out in thirds. 3 is anything divisible by God. A triptych is a manifestation. A trilogy is a good succession. Triplets, riven ovum 3 times. God is anything that bears a load. A swallow is the space between my God and the bluebird. A swallow is space between my God and the bluebird. This poem is called L, and I wrote it after reading a poem that Claire Wamenholm wrote. It's called O, and it's like a claustrophobic O, a world inside of all different kinds of O's and spheres and circles. And I teach children in the daytime. I teach kindergarteners up to 5th grade this year, but the school where I teach goes from preschool up to 12th grade. And we made an alphabet book where each kid chose a different letter of the alphabet, and then sent the book to Claire, which I like to do after I write something for someone, to send it to them, just as a, why not? Why not? Who cares? And so my letter was L. L. Long live our loyalty, how it loops, falls, lumbers, lulls, and lists, finally resisting its own limpness. Long live anything that has long wished to live, the lasso, the lake, the limit, the left lane, the spices spinning on their lazy Susan, the lavender field at peak bloom, illustrious and oven hot. Land and the outliers, land and the legion of the Outer Banks, land and the landed. Latitude, and that was my limit until I looked left. What length we expect to cover in these longitudinal years. Early loops slice lengthwise to see their insides. The latent exercise of the loom, left to right, layered weft and warp, listening to all its language, leached all across the living room. An antecedent to loyalty is drift or look away from the limit. Let me look at the warped shapes inside the lava, angry loaves lifting the mouth of the mountain, then lifting clear off the mountain. Leavened loaves at the limit of their leavening. Left loaves rock hard obsidian thoughts make. My yearling, even luxury has its limits, having lived or existed all year long. Love is a lifetime of long live our loyalty, how it loops, falls, lumbers, lulls, and lists, finally resisting its own limpness. A lifeline or ulna, all my limber bones held in my left hand. I have placed the bones on a bay laurel wreath, placed the wreath inside a barrel, lined up the barrels alongside other barrels laden with laurels and ulnas. What to say of lavishing honor? What to say of laconic I once tried? What of leisure or lassitude? Lateral pines loosen at the ends of their branches, languishing before they fall, loop through the extra air. I am alone in the lake region, algae bloom at my ankles, loaves lifting the mountains to make fresh archipelagos. I'm going to switch over to some new work from this fall that feels really slippery and disappearing still somehow. I feel like everything I've been working on this fall, I've written, I don't know, it's a different process. It's written quickly and in direct response to other work. And maybe I'll just read a couple of these pieces. I'm going to read a piece. Actually, there's one more piece in the book that I'd like to read, now that I said that. Yeah, this is for Nate Mackey. The Back Door or the Lone Coast. Abnegation began in December, something to do with the raw nature of endings, to do with a saline clarity or finish. Abnegation, or I can have it both ways, as in part credence, part self-splayed. The heart line of my left palm extends to receive whatever it is you place in it. I bet it will be sustenance, because I have known how it is to be fed. Abdication, or the act of annexing another country, or the act of crawling deeper into the hole. I made a charcoal line in the wet cement while it was being laid, stuck a few pebbles in the corner as the cement set, knew each time I saw the pebbled surface would be reminded of the moment when I placed the pebbles in the pavement of the wet cement. I am always half here, moving the bouquet around the house. Let its little shuddering petals fill me. Hold the neck of the vase, don't dare let it slip. Abnegation began in December, something to do with self-made endings. Chlorophyll in the winter is a commitment, but possible. Train the pothos towards the sun so that it can also grow. Might as well let it grow if you plan to let the plants live. I could not burden you with this kind of abnegation, so instead took to the bed, stayed there all night, slept for the 8 hours of it, woke up on Saturday. My head leaked the message, everything set to orchestra pitch. The radio reminded me that if I could commit, I could do it my way, place my foot in the black asphalt, take my foot to the cement for clearance. The cooler weather began in December. I didn't notice when the cloud coverage ended. My eyes were trained on the ground. And since I trained them, I saw the failings of my winter shelter. In the night, I sweat out all the abject days or humiliation. The ceiling fell around me, and I belatedly sought shelter under the desk. I asked my sister to join me, and I awoke at the threshold. Snow banter of drywall, dreamlike in this way. I awoke at the threshold, all cleave and cleft. Abnegation is a coolish lean lake, slipping into the logic of threefold, then deliverance. The whole marks its own shape. The whole marks its own shape. Abnegation is an aseptic aqua lake. I have seen this kind of water, all stylized and brute, all shelter-shorn and brute, all gradient stalled becoming. I have seen this kind of water leaks out to life, something like a crosshatch, but I think he said we are only made by giving away what humble placeholders we are given. And what we are given was cultivated in a garden, Arkansas crosshatch, cane crawl down the corridor, faith talk and myrrh, or iron ore and oxidation. I have tried once to board a flight, bird-like in furcula, wishing in my documents, night train and terror, compartments or garden. I have tried to board a flight. I succeeded 78 times. Stamp marked my entry, foul language my exit, but anyways means nothing to me, barely matches my imprint. I retreat to the garden, let its language provide the slippage, let its countervalence get more vivid, let to lean. Between Christina Sharp and Torquace Dyson, What kind of space would you need to move 500 people quickly? I have used the blueprint as a maritime future, used it as a seafaring fold. All foul futures never rest. Blueprint, I'll show the magistrate and expect to claim what is mine, or at least clarify what I meant. I thought to ask permission or just erase the door from the back entrance, room to room to room to green finish. Vaunted ceilings and picture windows. A vacuum or comfort in the cavity, comforted by the room and oiled all the birch doors. Abnegation or the lone coast, the back door or the lone coast. Clarify what I meant or the lone coast. Okay, I think I'll read one final piece. Is everyone okay? Okay, good. It's hard to tell, just like sort of sleeping or okay. I'm going to read this piece that I wrote for the artist Howard Smith, who was actually passed away just this past February. He was an American artist who was born in Philadelphia and left for Finland in the early 1960s. And he lived there and settled there. And I think about his life all the time and what leaving made possible in his own work and life. And I'm trying to write something about his life and about his work. So these are just some small pieces that are coming together in response to some of his own work. Mandible Wishbone Solvent after Oracle Hero by Howard Smith. Roped in incremental ghost tens, future tens, clairvoyant tens, home tens, blue slips beneath the exposed wing, tilt, then seam, then an angle, spent all inside. The distance between thumb and thimble and fingerprint. Height exceeds, then brims, makes a solvent of it. What vaunted green excess enclosed in each skimmed year than the years, vanquished any fuchsia sky, the excess leaking forward, filmed aqua, filled aqua. Fastened by ulna by increments of 10, fortunes sidled with, what have we when we give the mandible the fragments by tens? Tender tilt at 90 degrees to unearth blue slips beneath the exposed wing. Continents contain futures. You be here, tender tilt, remiss in skies, scant excess enclosed in a film that gives more than brimmed solvents to rest time. Thank you.